Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to call the meeting of the Deltona Charter Review Committee to order for September the 14th, 2021. If we could have a roll call, please.
Member Allen. Member Bryan.
Here.
Member Philpott.
Here.
Alternate Member Brower.
Here.
Alternate Member Ortiz-Morales.
Here.
Vice Chair Novick.
Here.
And Chair Northey.
Chairman Northey is going to be just slightly late, so I'll be chairing the meeting until she gets here. If I could please have a motion to add an item 2A to be the pledge and a moment of silence, please. Somebody make that motion, please.
Yes, please. Yes.
Made by Member Bryant. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. If you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Member Philpott, if you please lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we'd remain standing for a moment of silence and remember all those that gave their life on 9/11 20 years ago and all those that have perished since as a result of 9/11, both at home and abroad. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
All right. Chairman Northey is going to be slightly delayed, as I said. She has a item at home she needed to get taken care of before she could get here tonight. It was beyond her control, so she asked me to chair tonight's meeting till she got here. We are at the point of approval of minutes. Has everybody had an opportunity? Oh, before I do that, let me say we have both alternates tonight at this time. We'll be voting because we have two regular members that are out. At such time as if one of those members returns, Member Morales will be the voting member tonight. Last time I think we picked you to be the voting member, so we're going to go ahead and alternate. So when Ms. Northey shows up, Ms. Morales, you will still be the voting member in place of Ms. Allen, and Ms. Brower, you'll be stepping down. Until then, you're both voting. So have you had a chance to review the minutes? Everybody had a chance to review the minutes tonight?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Philpott.
Administrative error in the minutes. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, then 5.
Okay, Madam Clerk, so noted? All right. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes subject to those clarifications?
Make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Philpott to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by, I got a nod from Ms. Morales first, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And that takes us to item number 5, which is the public forum. Any member wishing to speak on the charter review on any item that's on the agenda or not on the agenda tonight? Nobody here from the public, so we will move on then to old business. That takes us to item 6A, discussion and review of the following research items. I believe we have a report from staff on item number 6A1. Madam Assistant City Manager, are you prepared to discuss that?
Yeah, deputy, just to clarify. So, deputy city manager. That's okay. So I had sent out some material. You should have it in your packet. It was also sent in an email regarding a recent change that was made by the commission that would allow a limited attendance of a commissioner via a virtual format. So that would be extenuating circumstances. And that action taken by the commission was consistent with current state statute, which was provided. So I think that what we have in place in terms of the procedures of the commission is sufficient to meet the state statute, and essentially really not something I think that we should be concerned with in terms of putting something in the charter. And, there was discussion also by the committee in terms of being able to be prepared for whatever comes next. Like this charter, obviously, when it was written, no one thought that things like Zoom would be used as widely as they are today. So
Okay, so the commission's comfortable handling it by policy, and they're not looking for any charter action to clarify that?
It was a recent change made by the commission, so I would have to say that that's the direction that they're going instead of the charter.
Okay. Any questions by the committee with regards to that? Hearing none. Madam Attorney, any legal concerns with that? Okay.
No.
Then I guess we will let the commission continue to handle that by policy. That takes us then to item number 2, which is section 5.8, City Commission meetings. City attorney to draft an additional paragraph with language that requires the City Commission to adopt policy requiring a minimum of 8 continuing education hours per year.
Mr. Vice Chair, I guess I was confused because I thought we were catching up on the stuff like the draft ballot language that I thought we were talking about the City Commission composition that I wrote the ballot language for.
Okay.
And I also thought we were also doing the compensation. And is that not what's on the agenda?
I'm just going straight down the agenda that's in front of me, ma'am.
I know, and that's...
So you just want to go ahead and table that? You're not prepared to discuss that at all?
No.
Okay.
Well, only in a bigger sense, which is something I thought, we might talk about at the end, which is, to me, that is, as I started looking at the stuff I was working on and doing the research on it, just seemed that we need to have like a category of possible policy and then a category of what could either be ballot issues or if there, again, after looking at some of these things, if there's a desire to try and replace the entire charter or all of that kind of stuff. So to me, as I looked at this on the continuing legal education, I just don't, to me, it's hard to justify spending, if you're going to do ballot questions, and you basically, the most I've ever seen is 6, and basically the most you have a chance of people reading and perhaps approving is 3. It just didn't seem like you would spend a
Well, I think we did have that discussion that we were going to come up with a list of recommendations for stuff.
So anyway, but I thought tonight we were catching up on the old stuff. So you did have that ballot question language. That's the first one I wrote. So.
Right. Okay. If we can just pause for a moment, let the record reflect that Chair Northey is now present. I'll be passing the gavel to her, and alternate Brower, you'll be stepping down to the alternate. Ms. Morales, you'll stay as the voting member in place of Ms. Allen at this time. Chairman Northey, we are on item 6. We're discussing and reviewing the following research items. We've discussed item number 1. We just finished up with 2, and we are looking now at number 3, section 5, some paren 10, limitation of employment. Again, the city attorney was going to look at Florida statute on that. I don't know if you want to pick up right there.
Okay. Thank you for handling that, Mr. Vice Chair. I apologize for being late. My husband's home care nurse was running late today, so I needed to stay and make sure that went okay. Just for my information, what did we decide on Section 5? I know we talked about trying to develop some language that would...
Section 5 subprint A
Number
you
one,
talked about?
section 5, yeah.
It was reported by the deputy city manager that the commission had recently adopted by policy how that would be handled.
Okay, I had seen that.
And it's...
We're comfortable with that.
It's her feel that the
Okay.
commission is comfortable
Okay.
with that does not need to be a charter amendment, so we're going to leave that
Great.
set
Okay,
with policy.
and I'm guessing we also, from what I read in the paperwork, that we have the 8 hours is already in there?
No.
No, it's-
I just didn't, I don't know. I think we had an agenda issue or something, because I was under the impression that we were handling the old stuff
Yeah,
tonight.
that's-
The ballot question I'd written, the research you all had asked for on compensation, I thought that's what was on tonight. But anyway,
It
so...
was old stuff. We are supposed to be talking about, this was a pause meeting, and we weren't going to move forward to 6 until we had some discussion on the issues in that area.
So I would ask, I'm sorry, but I did look at language on continuing legal. There is nothing in the statutes about that. So
Okay.
this would have to either be a commission policy or then a decision that you guys felt that strongly about it, that you wanted to make it a ballot question when you don't have many to spare.
Right,
So,
right.
so I didn't write language for that.
Okay, and so...
But I do have the ballot language that you got last time on the running at large. That's in your book.
Okay. No, I missed that then. I didn't see that. I'll have to look for that. Okay. Well, let's go through section 3, or number 3 and number 4, and then we'll come back to you, Madam Attorney, for a follow-up.
Okay. On section 3, there is, screwing with this. There is language in Florida statute with regards to not so much employment of commissioners, but it is geared toward economic benefit and, disclosure. And then there is also the conflict doing business with one's agency, which is Florida Statute 112.313. So there is quite a bit in Florida statutes at this particular time that governs those kinds of activities.
Okay.
So if you all want, I can make copies of those to put in your binders, if that would help.
Do you all want copies of that? Or do you need copies of that, or are we comfortable with...
Well, I
Mr.
think
Novick?
I think that if it's covered by statute already, we had talked about trying to formulate some type of cleanup language, a process to do the cleanup language. This probably would be one of those sections that just needs to say, according to Florida statute, and leave it a current Florida statute, so that if the statute changes or is amended by the legislature, that automatically adopts that what's current.
But the problem is, again, when you make changes like that, we have to do, this is the whole question of, do you do ballot questions, which you have a limited amount, or do we look at that possibility of pulling out what's in this charter that's already covered by statute, and then taking the remainder and either redoing, like a new charter? Because there's so much you guys want to
It just
clean
would
up.
seem to me that as long as cities have been around in Florida, there's got to be some administrative process to be able to fix typos and things that become outdated in a charter, other than making a specific ballot question out of it. Somebody's had to have tackled this already.
I'm not, that's a really good comment, but I'm not aware of that from my experience in charter government with the county and serving on their charter review, that there is not. There's the cleanup language needs to go on the ballot, is the way I understood it, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately.
You can do, see, the problem you have is you're very limited by statute on how you frame your ballot question, as you'll see on the one that I showed you. And so you can't really put like, we have 62 places where we want to clean up language, and we could well have more than that.
Right.
And you have to show it. Well, you can't show it within the amount of words, and that's where the question comes from. And so I have looked at, I know right now of 2 places that basically redid their whole charter. One is that to Funiac Springs, but it's a very small place, and they probably didn't have a really bad problem with advertising. Now, we do have social media too, which in the old days you didn't have. I mean, and we can post it on websites. The other is Altamont, and right now I have a lead on Altamont did theirs in the 70s, and I think into the 80s, finishing the early 80s, and they totally replaced their charter too. That's the only 2 places that I am aware of right now. But the difficulty we have is, as we keep going, the focus, it's hard to know what to focus on, because it's like if you all came up with 12 items in this charter that just have to be changed, that you want different language, you want something different, like the one with running at large. That's a really good example. You would still then have to look at that and figure out, well, if you put more than 3 in front of the voters, they don't want to read that much. You know, I mean, it's a difficult thing, so that now you're into priority of what?
So if I understand it then, on Section 5, because there's language in Florida statute that should cover doing business with the city while in office?
I believe so. I believe so. And we could also, you know, I believe the commission policies can also be beefed up and referred
And I
to.
thought we were keeping a list of recommendations that we were.
We are.
Okay, so
But we're on what page? And, you know, I have like notes like crazy. So,
yeah.
you know, but we can also, in the policies, or do an ordinance. We can also do an ordinance with a list of things that maybe shouldn't be in a charter, but are very important. And that means if a future commission wants to they've got to change the ordinance and then answer to the people why they don't want to follow Florida statute on this or that or whatever.
I don't think I'm hearing, and we'll go around the table, that we want to throw the charter out and start new, except for maybe you, Mr. Bryan. I think you might want to do that, but
Well,
wait a minute. Let me get everybody's thoughts on that one.
Throw the charter and start new?
Yeah, rewrite a charter. I don't think that's what we were
I don't think so.
tasked with doing, but it's obviously, if there are lots of errors and small things that need to be fixed, it's certainly an alternative. But I think at this point, we're still where we are. So, Mr. Brower.
Well, I have one question. If we were, and the whole charter, to redo the whole thing is, no, I don't agree on that. However, if it did come to that, would it be only one ballot question? So we could have 15 changes and only have one ballot question if it were to be like, we're just going to rewrite the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Because, like, I agree with you, because, like, the one cleanup where we were talking about books and images versus copies, because you wanted paper copies, and that's something that is a cleanup thing, but it has an effect because it saves the city money and it brings us up to speed. So some of the changes are actually effectual from a monetary standpoint, and can, even though they're small, they're effective.
Then we can do an
Other ones aren't.
ordinance.
And then again,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it was my understanding that after we went through this, and I agree, it's getting a little, but at the end of the day, when we get it all done, we're going to go through the list and go, that one's got to go, this one's got to go, because again, we can't have 30 things on the ballot, correct?
Well, say you all don't want a new charter, then the other option is to basically go for your top 3, 4, whatever major changes you want to make. And then with some of this other stuff, and we might have to actually, I'm not quite sure how we move some of this stuff that really doesn't have to be in the charter because we've got state statute, or we have other things that can be stated and is as good, if not better, than what we have in the charter right now. So there can be combinations. I guess the reason I bring it up is that as I'm like looking at state statute, looking at what we, we've got stuff on, I was looking at filling vacancies. That was one of the ones you all had. They have a section on filling vacancies, which is a little better than ours, not a lot. But it says that if you don't have a charter provision, then you can use theirs. And so there is some of that kind of stuff. But it's creating a, almost like a multiple lists of, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this, and all I'm concerned about is trying to keep all the balls in the air, but having you all also aware that there are a limited amount of options.
Well, it's always been, and Donna, I'd like to hear from you whether you're intending to, whether it would be your preference to throw the chart, not to rewrite the chart.
If you recall, in our first meeting or so, I brought up rewriting the charter, that I didn't think it would be any tougher to rewrite the charter than what we're going through right now. And in fact, I came with a entry paragraph of how I saw the charter beginning, which was not accepted too much among the group. But I still feel that this is a fairly small document, and I think a fresh redo of it is not beyond capabilities as opposed to, I looked at Winter Park, for example. They had 10 charter amendments on their last ballot in 2020, which was quite a few that was there. Even looking back on our paperwork here in Deltona early on, I think we had 8 that was in there, 8 or 9 charter amendments earlier on.
I don't think they passed, from what I remember. I don't think they passed.
I don't recall.
I can't remember.
I wrote it down in my notes here, but I have it handy.
Okay.
But I don't see the charter as it being impossible to rewrite it and do that.
So let me, Chris?
My only concern with a rewrite on the charter is it then becomes one question. So if somebody doesn't want the term limits thrown out, they vote against the whole charter because it includes the term limits.
And I don't think...
Then you accomplish nothing for this voting period.
Right.
That's a good point.
I think one of the things, too, we're advisory, unlike Volusia County, where it goes directly to the ballot. This goes back to the commission, and the commission makes a determination what they're going to put on the ballot. And they did not say at any time that I recall that they were expecting a rewrite, but rather a review of the charter. So
again, Madam Attorney, is it dangerous water if it is possible? So is it possible, A, and then is it dangerous water? Can a list of those cleanup things be given to
the commission?
No, to Representative Barnaby, and ask him to introduce a bill into the legislature and have the legislature clean it up. Is that possible? And if it is possible, is that dangerous ground?
Yeah, well, a lot of your cleanup is the statutes are better. You know what I'm saying? So a lot, you're not going, some of the problems that are in this charter are statutes cleaner and clearer than the charter. So that won't get you there. Now, what we might be, now, another option is that we basically list policies and things like that need to be changed, but you don't want to waste a charter question on, that we basically, you could present to the commission an ordinance. You could present to them ballot questions that you would like them to consider, and you could also present to them a draft ordinance that creates some change in the policy that you would not have to put on to a vote.
Which we
that
could
would
do
be
that.
to the,
We could do that.
yeah, that would be something the commission could then discuss, because you've done the work, and so you may end up solving two issues. The only thing I don't know is the mechanics of, if we don't redo the charter, but we're just changing certain parts of it, Joyce and I may have to figure out how technically, by passing the ordinance, and fixing certain things, how do we basically fix some of the charter? Because part of the problem I'll give you an example, and then I was planning on saying nothing tonight, but anyway, like say the running at large, that's a big issue.
That, to me, is what, when we're talking about charter change, that's
Yes.
the kind of stuff that...
But even though you're going to ask one question, if you look on those pages after, there are probably 6 or 7 sections that need to be adjusted.
That needs to be what?
That need to be adjusted, because say you put that ballot question out that everybody run, they have to be in a district, but they run at large.
So you're suggesting that ballot question would have impact on
Yes.
other sections of
Yes.
this? And would that then but that wouldn't be a question that would go out? I mean...
No, but I don't know
But when that question is written,
Yeah.
don't you put, as the attorney who would write it, don't you put in there, because we hear it all the time in ordinances and stuff, and ordinances when we get them, when I got them as a commissioner, that this, I forget the actual legal ease of it, but anything that's in conflict with this, it fixes it.
Yes, but then I understand what you're saying, but then there's interpretation, and we just have to figure out, by putting that in, ordinances are much easier to write than ballot language. So
But-
I don't know the operation of how much and how far it goes in making all those pieces fit.
Well,
But
go ahead.
here's the problem. Ordinances are only good from meeting to meeting. Okay? The charter is set by the people, by a vote of the people. I'm very leery to monkey with the charter from an ordinance perspective, because that can come and go and can change the flow with whoever the 7 that are elected. The charter is much more permanent. This is the foundation of the city.
It's the Constitution.
And I can tell you, as a former commissioner who had employment history with the city from the beginning, it can be very confusing when the city clerk, as a new commissioner, hands you the charter and says, here's your Bible. This is what you go by. This is it. This is the document. And except for state statutes, except for ordinances, except for rules and procedures, except for administrative policies by the city manager. So by the time you get done with the what fors and where, it's no wonder the public becomes skeptical of what the 7 of them do, because you sit up there and try and do your best with the information you have, only to find out that, oh, there's this ordinance that exists that
But the ordinance can't be in conflict with the charter.
No.
no, but if you're using it to fix or clarify something in there, it should be in the document. If it's that important to talk about the document, it should be in the document, other than if you're getting into how to administer what is in the charter. The charter should have the law. And then the ordinances and policies should tell you how to interpret and administer
But you
that law.
also want flexibility. When you talk about putting it in the charter, there are things that perhaps go in the charter that are not reflective of technology. I mean, we saw that in this charter, how to address that. So
But if it's not prohibited in the charter, it should be allowed then by policy. Policy just tells you how to have a meeting. In other words, the charter says you got to have a meeting once a month. That's all the charter should have to say. How you meet is addressed by policy.
Except when it's in
specifically
conflict with
excluded.
state statute.
Yes.
And I saw a lot of that in the paperwork, that the state has very specific issues on meetings and Zoom and quorums, and so we can't get beyond that. So I don't know. I'm not understanding what it is that you're wanting in the charter that.
I'm just saying the charter needs to stay broad. We don't need to
I would agree with you on
we
that.
don't need to get too specific, but I'm leery about, again, we veered away a little bit from what we started talking about, which was to fix what amounts to typos, if you will, in here, for lack of a better term.
Well, actually, we were on number 3, and that's where the conversation kind of veered off. So let's try to get back to section number 3, section 5. Elbert. Mr. Bryant.
Not to go back to what you were just saying, but I have a question. You talk about rewriting the charter. When Altamont rewrote their charter, they rewrote about 15 out of 30 items. And they called it rewriting the charter for one reason only. It was easier to place it on the ballot. It was easier to advertise it and discuss in the advertising what they had changed. Just because you put something on the ballot and you put it as a 75-word question doesn't mean you have to advertise it that way. Doesn't mean you have to educate the public on it that way. Now, that being said, don't cock your head at me like that.
I'm just trying to understand what.
Well, you take and put a 75-word definition of a rewrite.
Okay.
When you go to educate the public, you educate the public on what you actually rewrote. And you explain to them why you rewrote it that way. I mean, I don't care what anybody thinks. The public's not as stupid as everybody thinks we are. Now, that being said, can I ask a real simple question, Marcia?
Sure.
When we take and do this, can we recommend that we have, let's say, 4 ballot initiatives to change the charter for 2022?
Yes.
And that we have these 4 for 2024?
Yes, you could.
I mean, because the way we're going right now, you're going to end up with 30 items.
I would disagree with that. I don't think we've ended up with actually
I mean,
one
after you take
item
and look at all the
yet.
word changes and things like that
Well,
that you've
the
talked
cleanup
about,
amendment.
I mean, there's a lot.
And it's, okay, so Marcia, back to you. On cleanup amendment, the language that would be used for a cleanup amendment does it have to individually identify every cleanup item?
Yes.
On the ballot?
Yes.
That's what she was talking about a few minutes ago.
There's no way, when
Does
you
that have to
look
be in the
at,
question, or can that be in the description?
Yeah.
You have to identify each item you were changing.
yeah, I mean, that's the problem. I mean, you can, I've seen one where, we have some archaic stuff that just doesn't have relevance anymore that's in the charter, that was put in there at the very beginning for the, when everything was being put into place. I've seen a couple ballot questions where they just deal with archaic language that only refers to the initial incorporation. And that is specific enough. And, so that, but otherwise.
But we're a 25-year charter now, and those items have not been removed
That's
yet.
right.
Somehow.
That's right.
So
Yeah, but
what is the issue now? Why are we now speaking about taking, there are some that are important, but if
I'm not saying you have to.
Okay.
I'm just saying that I've seen a ballot, because, I think when John brought up Defuniak Springs, they changed their charter after 100 years, okay? And so their charter went into like the 1800 or whatever, okay? So they had some basic stuff that, I don't, maybe they didn't even have gas stations then. I don't know. But they had basic things that because their charter was so old that they had to change. And also, they were a very small place and probably would not have ballot challenges or any of the things that we probably could have. And so that was, so that was an example of they just redid their whole thing. But most charters do have things that are no longer relevant. Most leave them in, but some feel that it's important to get rid of things that are no longer of any value. And all I'm saying is I've seen a ballot question that just would deal with those kinds of things because they're easily identifiable. With some of the cleanup you guys are talking about, that would not fall into that category. And the statutes are very, the rules on ballot questions are very precise. And so, and I'm desperately trying to find this one. I was looking at the whole ballot question thing today, and I found a statute that I can't find right now. But anyway, when you distilled it, there were like 4 things that you have to have in your charter.
Right.
And the rest of it is all optional.
Well, I think we're getting really far afield here.
Okay.
I think our job was to review the charter and make recommendations, and if cleanup language becomes an issue, then that should not be the story that goes out to the voters. Is it this comma or this statement here? I think that we need to focus on really what the important issues are that we want to see the city address. And I'll go to you, Mr. Bryan, and then to Mr. Novick.
Oh, Mark.
Oh, you're done. Okay, Mr. Novick.
I just wanted to respond back to Mr. Bryant. I don't disagree with you whatsoever with what you said. My concern is how do we fix the problem of accomplishing nothing? In other words, if we did a whole rewrite of the charter, it's a yes or no question. You either adopt the new one or you keep what you got, and then we accomplish nothing in terms of what could be individual ballot questions, because you may have people that would support the no term limits, and you might have people that would vote against the at-large. And so if they're that opposed to the at-large, they vote the whole charter down, even though if it was broken out, they would have supported the no term limits. You follow me?
I understand what you're saying.
So I don't disagree with you, but I'm just saying, that's my concern
I would tell
about
you
the
that
whole
before
charter
we
issue.
started talking about doing more than just amending the charter and doing a charter rewrite, I would want to, as the chair, go to the city commission and have a conversation with them to see what their intention is, because they ultimately make the decision what goes on the ballot.
I just want to clarify with him that
And if
that
they're
I
not
understand what you're
looking
saying.
for a total rewrite or a rewrite that because of issues that we need to clean up, then we're not doing what we were empowered to do or asked to do.
Point taken.
Yeah.
That's also why I asked whether you can do what I call multiple election as far as questions. I mean, because you may not, as a commission, sitting up there, they may not want to overload the midterms with 6, 7, 8,
Right.
9, 10, 12, 13, 14, whatever. They may want to limit it to 4.
Well, can we agree to do this, to continue the process we've been using, ask the staff to identify those areas where they have cleanup language, and then when we get to the end, because we're going to have some potentially significant changes that we're going to ask the commission to send to the voters, and then decide on how we handle those cleanup issues. I think that unless they are substantial to the way the government is run, I'm inclined to let them stay or identify them and give them to the commission, let the commission decide how they would like to handle them. They want to handle them over a multi-election cycle.
Yeah,
Will that
that's fine.
work? Okay.
Yeah, fine with me.
Okay. So we'll move on then to, we're going to accept that the language in the Florida statute is on the limitation of employment of commissioners, that language would supersede. But would that be the correct, Marcia, would that be correct to say it supersedes? No, it does not?
It does not, but it...
Feels like it lately that everything that the state does supersedes a local government.
They haven't gotten to this yet, I guess. But anyway, all it does is give you clarification and interpretation.
Okay. But that's what, you as the attorney, if this was an issue before the commission, you would turn to the Florida statute and say, this is what's in Florida statute. Okay. All right. All right, Section 5, this is going to be an interesting one. Non-interference by city commission reviews of proposed language provided by Member Bryan. So who wants to start on that one? And I'm trying to find your proposed language.
That was,
You know,
that was at the last meeting.
I know. I have to admit that in my effort to get out of the house after the nurse left, I left my book on the table. So I am operating at a distinct disadvantage here. So, Mr. Bryan, do you want to talk about that again, or?
Well, I just look at it like this. What we have in this particular item is weak. It doesn't give the commission any kind of cover, and it doesn't give the city manager any kind of cover. To me, it's just weak. When you say interference and in the same language basically say that, no definition of what interference is, you're leaving it open for anybody in the public and or staff to make accusations that are false and could be vindictive. To me, it just needs to be clarified.
So I'm going to ask the assistant city manager if she has some suggestion. Where'd you find it? Suggestions on that?
Yours was the Oakland.
Yes.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be written exactly like that. I just felt that it was one of the stronger, well-worded language that I saw in any of the charters that I reviewed on this.
Yeah,
It allows for people to talk to the commissioners. It allows
tell me where that is, because I have a real issue with the fact that commissioners are told they can't even have conversations with the staff. That is absolutely the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And if that seems to be the policy du jour here in the city right now. And somebody who is a
Well, right off the bat, it says, except for the purpose of inquiry. That right there allows
So
for
when
any
a commissioner
inquiry.
was told that they could not even talk to offer them a bottle of water,
Well, the way I view interference.
That was ridiculous.
If you're standing outside, staff, they're working outside, commissioners, if they went up to them, talked to them for any amount of time, that could be inferred as interference because you're detaining them from their work. I understand that you think that's extreme.
I do.
Well, okay, let's look at it another way. You have staff in this building, and you come in, and you take and you sit down and you talk with a staff without talking to the department head and or otherwise. The department head comes in and realizes that his work that he had asked that staff member to do is not done, and realize that you've taken up 45 minutes of his time talking about family or friends or whatever. He could then take and come in Monday afternoon, stand at that podium, and charge you with interference, and then dictate exactly what had been done and not done, and the council would have to listen and act on it.
I think it's as simple as elected officials understanding what their role is.
I take and refer you to what happened just in San Sebastian, matter of fact, where they just charged him with perjury and charged him with interference after the fact, after they had already been removed.
Well,
And it was written similar to what ours is.
I have watched way too many elected officials get caught by staff who is out to make them look bad, to get them off the dais.
Exactly.
But I don't understand, I don't think that this language necessarily fixes that. So that's just my position on that.
Well,
I think that in my, and again, I realize it's been a couple of years since I've been in elected office, but I never felt constrained to pick up the phone as a county council member and call a department head, call a supervisor to get an update on something I was working on. That's just a standard operating procedure in many governments, that this idea that...
I'm not disagreeing that you can do that. And
But
you should
apparently
be able
that's
to
not
do that.
here. Apparently that there, I'm not going to
Well,
revisit history.
Again, I've only been out of office not even a year yet, and I can tell you, I constantly talk to staff.
I still do at the county.
Yeah, I still do too. I had to, and I'll frame it with one particular area. It is a three-pronged approach to be able to secure TPO money for a project for the city.
Mm-hmm.
I had to talk to technical staff in order to be able to make a case both to the commission to allocate a specific amount of money to a project, be it 10%, 20%, 30%, in order to, and then know the politics of the TPO board that I sat on, where I was trying to garnish support to move a project forward from a collaborative standpoint of other commissioners from other cities and council people, and then having the leverage of the 30% going in, a 30% contribution by the city. So in order to be able to know where it's appropriate to do that and to be able to negotiate or navigate that system, you have to be able to talk to a technical staff member. You have to be able to talk to the city manager and city attorney, and the only one that you can't talk to is the other commissioners. So you have to try and educate them on a very, a very technical subject matter when it comes to doing that. And because of that three-pronged approach, the commission, the manager, the staff, all working together in concert, we were successful in over $11 million of revenue. Now, I'm not blowing my horn. I'm just trying to give you an example of where you have to be able to have
But
that
here
communication.
again, that allows for that.
I understand that, but you're kind of talking about splitting hairs of, if you have somebody that's abusing the staff and constantly taking up their time or trying to give them direction, again, I don't know that that's something that specifically needs to be in the charter. Certainly, the law part of it needs to be in the charter, but again, the commission should adopt the policies and direct the manager to draft staff policies to address that. I don't know that anything more than the broad issue of non-interference needs to be in there. I agree with you about some form of a definition. There needs to be some stronger form of a definition for that particular item to give guidance, but not get too far down in the weeds with it.
Find something that works.
Well, that's...
Mr. Nabik, because I don't have my book in front of me, could you read what is currently in the city's...
Non-interference by city commission,
Yeah.
item 11,
Could you read
except
that?
for the purpose of inquiry and information, the commission and its members, including committees thereof, are expressly prohibited from interfering with the performance of the duties of any city employee. Now, that's a mouthful right there, all of that. Who is under the direct or indirect supervision of the city manager or city attorney. Such action shall be malfeasance within the meaning of Florida statutes. That whole first two sentences there's a lot of interpretation there.
Actually, when I read what Mr. Bryan has submitted, it sounds very similar. So I'm trying to understand.
I'm trying to change the word interference, be real honest with you.
Okay.
What would you replace that word with?
Direction.
Except for the purpose of inquiry and information, the commission and its members, including committees thereof, and expressly prohibit from directing?
Giving direction.
Giving direction.
I guess you're going to have to add two words, but anyhow.
No, I'm not splitting here. Prohibit from giving direction with the performance of the duties of the city employees.
So we're talking about making, that Mr. Bryan is wanting to make a change. Okay. Well,
I think I see
except
what
for
you're
the
saying, but
purpose of inquiry and information.
I don't think changing that one word doesn't work.
The commission.
It doesn't sound right.
Can we
It does in the way that it's defined.
What's in there? When you use the word accept, does that not take care of the issues about interfering? So it says except for those two things, you can't interfere with.
except for the purpose of inquiry and information.
Which is what you said you were doing when you were
Right,
on.
and that could be this broad or this narrow. I'd like to just throw the deputy city manager in on this and get some feeling from the management side. What is? I'm not trying to burn you here. Do you have concern with this? And let's just say from your previous life. Let's not even worry about currently here, unless you've seen some glaring reason to address this. Do you have experience where this has been an issue or a concern with the elected officials?
Okay, since my mic is hot, I believe, and I could be wrong, Madam Chair, but I believe the example of the water was an extreme example and not something that actually happened in the city. And if it is something, I will be asking some questions. I certainly would not see that as interference. I think we're looking more at the direction of staff, specifically the direction of staff. I certainly, as the deputy city manager, am open to speaking with anyone if they have any questions. It's up to me then to decide, is that something that is for public consumption or commissioner consumption? I mean, really, that's what we're talking about, is the commissioners, because obviously there are personnel items that we deal with that are really not commission matters. They are personnel matters. When it becomes an issue is when a commissioner provides specific direction to an employee who feels that because of the commissioner's status, feels that they can't do anything other than comply. And complying may not be in line with what their supervisor has instructed them to do.
So I'm going to tell you, I just looked up the county's clause on this. It is identical. The county, I guess.
Well, a lot of the language in here
Exactly.
came from the county.
So I guess to your concern, Albert, this is what I'm struggling with. I operated for 20 years under the same language and felt very comfortable calling a department head or calling a staff member who was working on something and asking them a question or asking them where they were. Or if I saw somebody out on the roadway, I would have no problem stopping and asking them, about the job or something. I guess what it now...
But did they feel comfortable all the time? I mean, see, that's the question, because you're trying to protect you as a commissioner or council member.
I'm trying to give the commission,
And
the
you're also trying to
commissioners...
protect the employee. You understand what I'm saying?
But the employee has a process
I was just
I
going to
understand
ask.
that.
Internally if they feel they
Threatened
are
or harassed?
harassed or abused.
But that's not what this is about. This is about giving direction
Again, it falls into...
or direct interference with the job duty.
That falls into the same category. I can tell you as a former deputy fire chief here for over 30 years, I had council members tell me to approve plan documents for a major building in this city, and I refused to do it. And when push came to shove, they backed off because there was a process in place that I exercised where the manager went to that commissioner and said, we don't operate this way, and if you keep going down this line, we're going to deal with that. So there is a process in place from management that if the employee feels that way, working it from the employee up, not from the dais down, there is a process in place through HR to deal with that. And again, both as an employee and a former city commissioner, I can tell you I saw it work both ways.
I think what we're really saying is it's about the relationship between management and the commission and how comfortable they are with allowing commission members to have conversations. And after recognizing that this language is fairly standard, I'm comfortable with leaving the language as it is currently written. So unless there's a motion by a member of the committee to adopt other language, then I would suggest that we move on.
Albert, is that your only concern, is the employee to the
For the last 5
commission,
years.
or is there a concern of the commission to a commissioner to the manager?
for the last 5 years, I've heard complaints from both up there, from where that manager sits, continuously about each other. And it all relates back to that one word. None of them have been satisfied with it, because Jane stated at one meeting that she couldn't do anything because that wasn't well written. Cooper, at one point in time, stated that he couldn't do anything about a complaint because that wasn't well written.
Okay, so read the sentence again.
Oh, I've read it.
Well,
And I'm not, all I'm saying is
trying to find out.
if y'all are fine with
No.
it, then let it ride.
No, we're trying,
I'm trying to understand again what you're saying is just one word that you want changed in here?
I think the whole thing needs to be changed personally. I think it needs to be stronger. I think there needs to be a process
Okay.
for
Yeah.
the manager and/or commissioner to look through it.
I wouldn't, I accept what you're saying, I don't agree with that. I would not agree with that.
That's fine.
So, okay.
I too accept what you're saying, and I don't agree with changing it in the charter. I think, again, as I said previously, the charter is broad. The wording, it has worked for 20-plus years here. It's worked for the council, and I haven't looked at other city charters with that detail for that specific word. But I would say if management is having an issue with being able to deal with a problem, then management should offer that solution to the commission in form of...
Actually, Cooper did.
Okay, and then the commission didn't act on it. And so what makes you think they're going to act on something we bring to them?
I don't. And that's where I have an issue with this.
Okay.
Is that it goes back to the basic that no accountability.
I think accountability is the voters, is just to the voters. That's
Well, in terms of the 7 that are up there, it certainly is. But again, I spent a great deal of time with Mr. Cooper when he was both the deputy manager and the manager, and I'm not aware of that level of frustration that he didn't feel he had the tools to be able to do what needed to be done.
Chris, I'm going to stop you right there, and I'm going to ask other members of the committee for their comments, if they have any, or whether we are wanting to make changes to this or to...
Can I have that section back?
Yeah, sorry.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other comments, and I do not see a motion that's been offered. So are we moving on? I think so. Okay. And then we had language from the attorney on, Marcia, you had language on the at large?
Yeah, everyone received that draft ballot language number 1. That's the only one that that's technically written at this point, and this was on the at large. Madam Chair, do you have that? Do you need it?
I need it, yeah.
Here, let me give you mine.
I think we've got it.
You got it?
I don't have that.
Is that what you just
That was
did?
from last week,
Okay.
or last meeting.
I don't know if that's it.
Okay.
I don't know if that's it.
Is this, do we have a copy machine down here?
Is this it?
Can we make copies, please, of what? Okay. So this would be our first ballot amendment at this point. Is everybody on board with that? And I don't know. So referendum.
Yeah,
I couldn't find
I
it.
just wanted everyone to understand the restrictions in the writing, the statutory restrictions, where you can see the number of words and how you put it together.
The August 24th meeting, right?
Okay, it's probably in my book at home. Whew, okay, it's been a bad week for me, I'm sorry. Okay, so this is not on the agenda tonight as something to vote on, and I would want this to be an agenda item for the public to have an opportunity to weigh in on this. So could we add this, Joyce, could we make this an agenda? Are you okay? You got it there, girl? Could we make this an agenda item for next week, or for 2 weeks, to talk about this specifically in 2 weeks? Would that work for everybody?
Well, can we be...
You want to talk about it now?
Well, I was going to say, there's
Sure.
nothing I think that prohibits us from talking about it now.
No,
Just
but
we can't vote on it tonight.
I really would like this to be vetted so that the public recognizes that this is a significant change. I'd like us to be transparent.
His had a lot of highlights on it, so I don't know if Mr. Philpott, did you have comments, or do you want to start the discussion?
Don, is there anything that you want to add? I mean, we can have a discussion on it, but we'll have the discussion again next meeting, because it's not been agended, and it needs to be an agenda item so that the public is aware that we're talking about this. We can talk about it tonight, though.
I would just say that what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, or 2 meetings ago, actually, was making it a citywide for all the commissioners, and that's what's been incorporated in the way that this is
Still living in their district.
right, living in their districts, but representing the city at large.
Okay.
And I think this covers it.
It does for me. I mean, I'm looking at it, it looks fine, but I just don't want to take any final action. I want to have an opportunity for everybody to, so that's good, great. We will agenda this for next week as an item to, 2 weeks as an item to consider for adoption. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So now we're on.
Your copy.
Oh, I didn't know if that was okay. All right. I probably have it at home.
2 now.
Yeah, I know. It's been a really difficult week, so
All right. It's
you have
okay.
to
You're doing
excuse
fine.
me.
You're doing fine.
Okay, discussion. We're on to new business.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Have also, I don't know, I thought that tonight we were doing the old stuff that we hadn't gotten to, and one of them was compensation. And I know that...
We did talk about that, but it's not on the agenda.
I know,
And
but-
so can we add that to the agenda for?
Sure, that's fine, but...
We did. We said we were going to do cleanup, and
And there was research that the city manager's office
Right.
did with regards to...
I haven't seen that. He was going to update that file. I haven't seen that updated.
On compensation? Oh,
It was a list of cities, and he recommended that they get the information on, and he was going to have that done and get that, and we haven't seen that.
I thought they had. Yeah, no? Okay, Joyce needs to get us straight, I guess, because we're all confused. I thought we had it, isn't it in their book?
It's not finished. Right. Right.
That was this document?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we're not...
He wasn't going to do more than what we requested, because it's a fairly significant job, and that was left on the table. Okay? So I think Marcia probably...
And that actually is in the minutes from the 24th.
Right.
Where it talks about, he asked if the committee agreed with the spreadsheet's color coding, and if so, he will continue completing the spreadsheet, which we haven't.
And we said yes, we agreed with it, yeah, okay. Okay, all right.
Okay, so you want that item agended for the next
For the
meeting
next
as well?
meeting as well, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, was there anything else, Madam Attorney, that you're aware of that? Okay, all right. We'll get there. It's just been,
We've got a lot of time.
we have
We're
time,
doing
yeah.
good.
Okay, all right. So I had a note on my my agenda and under new business that I just wanted to, before we go on to section 6, I guess I'm just curious when I realized that the agenda hadn't been posted online, and I understand that there was an issue, and that's not my question there. My question is that we don't post minutes and documentation on the web page either. I didn't notice that on either the CRC or the commission, that those items are posted as part of the web page. So I'm curious.
The minutes are on the website, the agenda's on the website.
Okay, then,
The board does not put the attachments with their agenda, then those are usually not. You have to do an agenda memo with attachments. So like the city commission, they have an agenda memo, then they have all the attachments to that agenda memo. Those are all posted when the agenda's posted from start to finish. But the boards don't usually have backup documentation.
okay. I didn't see minutes. That's why I was just questioning the minutes on,
It should be on there. I double checked it before I came down.
okay, all right. Maybe I looked at it
When you
wrong.
posted the agenda, they were on there, yes.
Were they? Okay. Okay, I didn't see them. All right, okay, great. We'll move on to item A, discussion and review of section 6, budget and appropriations. And we'll start with fiscal year. I don't think anybody's interested in changing the fiscal year at this
Oh, come
point.
on now.
You are a troublemaker.
Sometimes.
So the city shall have a fiscal year which shall begin on October 1 of each year and end on September 30th of the succeeding year. We're fine with that. Do I see heads nodding? Yes, okay. Okay. Budget adoption, the commission shall by resolution adopt a budget on or before the 30th day of September of each year, and that's common by all governments. A resolution adopting the annual budget shall constitute appropriation of the amounts specified therein as expenditures from funds indicated. So that's just general language that all local governments follow. So I see heads nodding on that one as well. Okay. Appropriation amendments during the fiscal year. That language is, I'm familiar with the standard language.
Standard, yes.
So we're okay with appropriation amendments during the fiscal year. Okay, we don't want to change anything there. Okay. So that takes care of, does that take care of item 6?
Yep.
Yeah. So we don't have, is there any other changes or recommendations on budget? It's pretty dry language. There's not a lot we can do.
The only thing that I would say with regards to budget, when I was on the commission, there were issues that arose several times where we had to vote on an issue that night with regards to budgetary issues.
Okay.
And some commissioners were uncomfortable with those timelines and had directed staff to do a better job of giving us advance on that material. And some of those issues weren't really staff's fault. Some of them were, you just don't get information in.
I'll say some of it was state statute's fault.
Yes, some of it, you just don't get information in from the property appraiser and
Right.
some of the vendors and stuff like that in time. So I don't think any of those issues can actually be fixed.
That would, I think, really be an operating issue.
Yeah.
With the-
So again, I just wanted it to be on the record
Yeah.
because I know some previous commissioners thought that was, they were quoting some stuff out of the charter with regards to that in the past, and there's really nothing in the charter that can fix those issues. It's more of staff working with the other agencies, be it the state people, the federal treasury people, FEMA, whoever.
Their deadlines.
Yeah. So,
Okay, all right. Okay, that concludes item 6, and we won't move on to item 7 because that's not been
That was not
advertised. And we'll look at the Deputy City Manager comments. Any comments from you?
Yes, ma'am. If I could ask for our next meeting, if we could return to Section 6, and I know everyone went through that, but I would like to have a discussion with our fiscal department regarding some of the language that's in there that they have in the past had some difficulties with.
Sure.
So I want to be able to bring that back to you.
Yeah, if there is language that needs to be changed, we're open to it, but yeah, sure.
Okay, so if we could just put that on the agenda for next
Okay.
time.
Mr. Novick?
and with no disrespect to you at all, I would like, if at all possible, if Camille could be present.
Ms. Hooper no longer works here.
Oh, she's not here anymore? Okay, well, see, I'm out of touch with that. Whoever's running finance, just because if there's specific examples that they might be able to give, it's such an important area to have that finance person maybe shed some light on some things. Again, no disrespect to you whatsoever, but I just know from previously, other managers and stuff would always defer to, to the finance director on things just because it was so technical of an area. So if he or she could possibly be here, that may facilitate the meeting. I would appreciate that.
Is that good with you?
Thank you.
Okay, great, okay.
I had one other thing. If you all could just take a look at, for the next meeting, let's see, it would be under Section 7. I know we just went through this, but the filling of vacancies, actually the first 2 sections. So we're at filling of vacancies on bottom of page 5. Which I did check the state statute, and just to put it up front, this is something, it does say in the state statute, it can either be in the charter or in an ordinance. But my concerns in reading this particular section, well, there are many, but we'll start with, there's actually no mechanism that's in the charter for how we're going to fill a vacancy. Now, Robert's Rules does have a preference for the nomination and ballot method. So one could certainly interpret that since nothing is indicated in the charter, we fall back to Robert's Rules because that is our procedures. So there's that issue.
Okay, can I stop you right there?
Sure.
Because I'm not clear on that. I'm looking at, under filling of vacancies, item D, paragraph 2, it talks about commissioners shall, within 30 days following the occurrence of such vacancy by majority vote, appoint a person to fill the vacancy for the remainder of the unexpired term.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so, and then if, however, the remainder exceeds 2 years, the remaining commissioners shall, within 30 days following the occurrence of such vacancy by majority vote, appoint a person to fill the vacancy until the next regularly scheduled. Is that not standard language that's?
It may be standard, but I guess what I was looking at more of, are you looking for the commissioners to nominate an individual, or is the commission going to be accepting open applications and go
I
from
see
there?
what you're saying. You're right, that doesn't say that in here, does it?
And if I could, I've been looking at too many statutes today, but 166.031, which is Charter Amendments at number 6, says each municipality shall by ordinance or charter provision provide procedures for filling a vacancy in office caused by death, resignation, removal from office. Such ordinance or charter provision shall also provide procedures for filling a vacancy in candidacy caused by death, withdrawal, or removal from the ballot of a qualified candidate following the end of the qualifying period, which leaves fewer than 2 candidates for an office. So that to me is giving an option. It's an option that you can by ordinance adopt, Robert's Rules of Order, it gives you.
Has the commission not adopted anything on how?
No, all we have is this charter provision that is less than clear. By the same token, everybody's survived for this long with it, but it's one of those kinds of things where as you go forward, you may choose an ordinance.
Okay, so I'm a little confused.
Okay.
Dana McCool was appointed prior to her election.
Yes.
What policy or procedure did the commission use to do that, to appoint her to that open seat?
I know they solicited for.
Okay, but you're saying that that's not a policy at this point?
Unless it's in the policies and procedures
Okay.
of the commission.
Madam
Did you
Clerk?
look?
I don't know.
I know we put it out, we did applications.
Right.
We got applications before the Courts Commission.
We've done it several times the same way, multiple times.
So why don't we,
Didn't we do it with Ramos as well?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, we've done it
Why don't we
multiple times.
defer to the deputy
And
city
McFall.
manager to come back with that information? And if she thinks there's something that needs to be either added to the charter or done by ordinance, then we can take that up next meeting.
Yeah.
Will that work?
I think we need to look at the policies. Joyce, is that in the policy, in the commission policies?
That's what Joyce has said. She didn't think it was. So it should be. There should be a
Well,
policy.
Somewhere, the staff has given us a consistent manner to do it, because even in my 8 years on the commission, we did it a couple of times, with Barnaby, with Ramos, with Dana McCool.
Probably needs to be memorialized, though, because I think that's what I'm hearing, that it's not memorialized.
Well,
So,
I would say that needs to be researched, because
Yeah.
that's been
Yeah.
over a period of a couple of different clerks. It certainly precedes Joyce. It was done under Faith Miller
okay.
prior to her. So there's got to be something somewhere, and if not, certainly by virtue of what we've done, it should follow.
Yeah.
Because it worked.
But I do think that's a good catch, so we will.
And the city may very well have set a precedent
Yeah.
with past nominations. So, but
But they've been consistent.
was it
That's the important
consistent
thing.
is the issue. And that's something that you can always look back on.
That's a really important issue, too, how you appoint people into an elected, which would become an elected, appoint a person in an elected office. That's really a critical element, so.
I had one other item in that
Sure.
particular section, just to kind of get everybody thinking. So if you take a look at the first section, it says a vacancy occurs in the office of mayor. The vice mayor shall serve as mayor until a new mayor is elected at the next regularly scheduled city election and assumes the duties of his or her office. The commission shall fill the commissioner's seat temporarily vacated by the vice mayor by appointment as provided herein. So think about this. A scenario for you. You could have a sitting mayor who has 2 years left in office, a vice mayor who has just begun their term, right?
Which is elected within the body politic and for a one-year term.
I'm sorry?
It's elected by the members of the commission.
So vice mayor is elected every year, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Right.
Correct. But you're now taking potentially, this is a scenario, you're taking the vice mayor with a 4-year term, and they're moving into a mayor position with a
No, the vice mayor only has a one-year term.
No, you're moving them into mayor because the mayor is leaving. If a vacancy occurs in the
years.
office of mayor, just a scenario. So you have a sitting mayor, right, who is in their 3rd year of a 4-year term.
Right.
Okay. You have the vice mayor who is in the 1st year of their 4-year term.
first year
The
of their
vice-
commission term.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So
They now move to the mayor position.
Only for a year.
only for a year.
It doesn't say that.
It does not.
Well, it says that for does it say for the election cycle to the next?
No, it just says that they move in, shall fill the commission assumes the duty of his or her office, and then it talks about filling that commissioner seat temporarily vacated.
So
the
in my
vice mayor.
example, essentially, you have a commissioner
Yeah.
who would serve 2 years
It
and would
says-
either have to run for mayor or rerun for the same seat that they held
That they
previously, only to get a 2-year term.
It's until the next regularly scheduled city election.
But you have filled that commissioner's seat.
Right.
It says the seat temporarily vacated.
That's
Oh, so you're,
yeah,
Is that
okay, so you're
person-
that's
concerned about
exactly
where
right.
Is that
electorate
person
goes.
returning to their
Yeah.
seat?
Okay.
Yeah, that is an issue. Yeah, that's more than a cleanup, I
It's
think.
not an issue with the mayor's seat, it's an issue with the person that's acting
Yeah,
up.
Potentially, yes.
yeah, okay.
I got
Do you want to bring some discussion, put that on the agenda? And, I mean, until you start thinking it through, it's not clean, because they do serve, the vice mayor only serves 1-year term.
Well, it says, though, again,
But how do they
it's
go
not
back to
clear,
their
it's
seat?
not clear, I guess, is the problem.
It's not.
But it says the commission shall fill the commissioner's seat temporarily vacated. So I think the intent there is it's only a temporary appointment until that next general election. That temporary appointee would go away. It's not clear here, I agree with you, but I would argue that the intent of this is the commissioner being appointed to fill the vice mayor's seat is only a temporary appointment until such time as the next regular election where the
But it does say that-
where the acting mayor would go back to their commission seat
But it's
and a
been-
new mayor
but-
would be elected.
But it will be temporarily, it's temporarily the commission shall fill the commissioner's seat temporarily vacated by the vice mayor.
By appointment, temporarily
So
vacated.
temporary is,
Until the next regular election, when you would fill the
no,
mayor's seat.
until the vice mayor was no longer
Vice mayor.
vice mayor.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, it's a problem.
The way I understand it,
Well,
at
it
any given
obviously needs to
time,
be fixed because we've got 3 different opinions here of.
Yeah.
well, the way I read it, at any given time, the vice mayor can be voted to not be vice mayor.
Right,
At any given time, it doesn't matter.
yeah.
6 months after they've already been voted as vice mayor, somebody can make a motion
But once
to vote them out as vice mayor.
But once they're acting as the mayor, they're in that seat until such
Well,
time
once
as
they
the
become
election.
mayor, that's different.
But then the commission has to appoint someone to temporarily take the
Correct.
vice mayor's position, and then the vice mayor goes back to their position after their year as vice mayor, and that temporary person then, I guess, goes off the commission, right? Is that the way? Yeah.
That's the way I read it, yeah.
Yeah,
I would agree that needs some
Joyce is handing out papers.
some clarification.
So are you volunteering, Marcia, to rewrite that? Is that what you're saying?
It's not volunteered yet. Okay, so,
I
all
wouldn't
right.
disagree that that was the intent, but if we go back
It
to,
obviously
if we go into trying to talk about what was the intent, then obviously it wasn't written properly.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I could sit here and read and write intent into this whole thing, and it doesn't matter at the end of the day, as y'all have done all night.
Anything else, Madam Deputy Manager?
I think that's enough for this evening.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn? Are
All
we?
right, well, let's make sure the clerk is squared away on what's going to be on the agenda for the next meeting.
Actually, can we have a clarification of what you actually want on the agenda for next meeting?
That's what I just said.
The issue of compensation on the agenda. The issue, well, we're going to put the items that the deputy manager wants to discuss, that we'll put those on the agenda. And there's the ballot language that we had delivered, but we did not discuss. I think that's the catch-up, the two catch-up items, and then the items that the deputy city manager wants.
Right, I would like to return to the budget section.
Okay. Right, the budget section. And also, we're going to talk about, you want to talk about that succession plan, correct? Yeah. So is that good?
And the ballot information, did you mention that?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
So that's more than enough.
Yeah.
We won't move to section
Right.
7 at the next meeting.
That'll fill us up.
We're just
Yeah.
going to clean up and catch up, right?
Because I think Section 7 will have some
Okay.
significant discussion, too. Okay. All right, 7:30, we're finished early, and we are adjourned unless there's additional business to come before us. And thank you, everybody, for coming out. Thank you, staff, for the work you're doing, and for the members of the commission who give their valuable time. And for the alternates to show up, I appreciate that, too. So, good night.
Good night.
All right.